Welcome to the Paranormal Stakeout Radio TV show with Larry Lawson. As a former career law enforcement officer and law enforcement educator, Larry focuses on the use of tried and true law enforcement investigative techniques in conducting paranormal investigations. Despite his experience and training, Larry also keeps an open mind to discussions on topics that deal with evidence that are not quite as physical in nature. Paranormal Stakeout guests are professionals in the field of the paranormal and parapsychology, conducting the investigations and research needed to further the cause of paranormal study. Larry advocates an agenda of standardization of structure and training in the field of paranormal investigation and research for the purpose of one day being able to produce the evidence needed to convince a jury of the existence of the paranormal. Whether it is ghosts, UFOs, unsolved mysteries, hauntings or cryptids, no topic is beyond the investigative reach of Larry Lawson and the Paranormal Stakeout Radio TV show team. Now, here is the host of the Paranormal Stakeout Radio TV show, Larry Lawson.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Paranormal Stakeout. I'm your host, Larry Lawson, coming to you from the headquarters of the Florida Bureau of Paranormal Investigation and Indian River Hauntings in beautiful Vero Beach, Florida, where it may be wintertime everywhere else, but at least we can still wear shorts and no jackets here most of the time. I know our friends up north always get mad at me for that, but I got to get that dig in there. But anyway, folks, welcome back to the show. Got a great show for you tonight. I have tonight, the preeminent expert on the paranormal in Gettysburg, the Dean of Ghosts, I call him, Mark Nesbitt. Mark was a National Park Service ranger and historian for many, many years at Gettysburg, and he started researching, searching, and writing about the ghosts of Gettysburg. He had a unique inside view as to what it was like on the battlefields. He spent a lot of time teaching folks about the battle and the history behind it. He went on to write his popular Ghosts of Gettysburg series. He's authored over 20 books spanning several genres, including the paranormal, history, and true crime. He's been seen on the History Channel, A&E, the Discovery Channel, the Travel Channel, Unsolved Mysteries, and of course, Coast to Coast over the years. He's also created the very successful Ghosts of Gettysburg Candlelight walking tours. So tonight I'd like to welcome the Dean of Ghosts of Gettysburg, Mr. Mark Nesbitt. Mark, welcome to the show.
Hi, Larry. Thank you.
It's really good to have you back on the show and chatting to you about one of my personal favorite places in the whole world, history-wise, and that's Gettysburg, a place of great sadness, but of great history also. So welcome. Many of the folks that are watching tonight, I'm sure, are aware of you. They've read your books, maybe you've taken your tours. But for those that may be under a rock somewhere or been sleeping for the last 20 years that don't know you, tell us a little bit about yourself and your background.
Okay, well, as far as Gettysburg is concerned, it's been part of my life from the time I was about 8 years old. My parents took me to Gettysburg when I was a very young child, and we I had weird feelings there even back then. It was a place that really struck me as kind of unusual. And then I got a chance to work there for the Park Service when I was just before this senior year in college, and lucked out. I would have done anything, to be in Gettysburg for a while. And it turned out that the National Park Service was looking for rangers that particular summer. And so I got an opportunity to work there that first summer, learned the ropes, and then eventually stayed on with them for a number of years. Got into the law enforcement end of it for a little while, and then kind of left and decided I wanted to be a freelance writer. I wanted to be a writer. Left a real good job to be a freelance writer, which is in the long run, it was fine. But looking back, the first couple of years after that, it was pretty stupid. But it all worked out fine. I had some contracts with the National Park Service. and then ended up doing some research for historical artists that were doing Civil War themes, and then started writing my own books after that.
That have been very, very, very successful. Now, while you were a ranger, you also became a licensed battlefield guide. Aren't all rangers experts in taking folks, interpretive rangers anyway, being, taking folks on the battlefield, or is that a special rank or whatever?
Well, the licensed battlefield guide, we were self-employed, and
Oh,
so
okay.
the only connection with the National Park Service is that the Park Service licenses the guides. So I had to
Ah,
take a special test, as they do now,
mhm.
and demonstrate that I could take someone on a tour. But it was a little bit easier for me because I'd already done that for several years, 6 or 7 years. Giving talks to thousands of visitors, tourists,
Mhm.
at the various sites. So I had the history down pretty well, and the ability to present the history. When you're talking in front of 30 or 40 people 4 times a day, and you do it for several years, you immediately know when you've struck a responsive chord and when you've fallen flat. So
Ah,
that's where I got my ability to give tours and things like that. So, but I was a licensed battlefield guide for really just a year before I
mhm.
went into business for myself.
Gotcha, gotcha. How big is the park? I mean, just to give folks an idea of the breadth of this.
I forgot how many acres it is, but the from the Peace Light to the Little Round Top is about 6 miles, and from side to side, east to west, it's about 2 or 3 miles. If you include some of the outlying battle areas, you're talking you're talking dozens of miles out of Gettysburg. They fought in Carlisle, which
Right.
is 30 miles north and then on a retreat, they fought all through the mountains and on the way back to Williamsport, um, uh, um, Maryland, and when the Confederates finally crossed the river there. So it
Mm,
was, people think it just happened on the park, okay, that the battle
mhm.
and the fighting just took place on the park, but it was vast. They, in fact, I was just reading the other day about some uh, pretty good earthworks that are
Mm,
still visible in Bedford, Pennsylvania. That's an hour and a half
mm,
from Gettysburg driving.
mm.
So
Yeah.
it was a huge battle and a huge campaign, and people think that the only place that could possibly be haunted by the soldiers that died or were wounded in the battle um, is on the park. So that's where they want to do their paranormal investigations, and you can't because of the law. But there are
Mhm.
plenty of other places to go that you can do investigations.
Well, that's interesting you bring that up. You cannot conduct a private paranormal investigation anywhere within the actual park, and that's federal law, or
Well, no, actually it's kind of up to the individual superintendent, but
mm,
they have closed the park from dusk till dawn. It used to be 10 o'clock that you could stay on the battlefield until, or on the park until, but they've closed it now from dusk till dawn, to sunset to sunrise. And but you can do, if you're discreet, you can do a paranormal investigation on the battlefield, on the park, really anytime, as long as you don't, you know, have
you're not
a
blatant about it.
50, yeah, 50 people in your group, or you're
Uh-huh.
charging. You can't charge money because that's a commercial enterprise, and you need
Sure.
a special permit for that. So, but but people get confused about the park and the battlefield because the town was a battlefield.
Yes, it was.
The
It was.
college campus was a battlefield. The areas that I found were kind of active paranormally were out by the old almshouse, which is out on Business 15, in the back area of a parking lot that used to be a Radio Shack. So the hauntings are all over Gettysburg and the environs, not just the park itself.
Well, I was at the Covered Bridge one time and
That's
had
another one.
quite an experience there. I would love to tell you about sometime. I think you'd get a kick out of it.
Sure.
You've written all these books, and like I said, most folks that are aware of the hauntings in Gettysburg are aware of your books. How did you come to write those books? What was the impetus to get that down?
Well, as I said, after I left the Park Service, I was doing some freelance writing, and there was a local publisher actually, and he had done a lot of books on Gettysburg in particular, on bullets and armaments and stories. And it started off that I wanted to actually do kind of a revamp of the human interest stories, and Ghosts of Gettysburg was only going to be a chapter, or a segment, a quarter of the book. And someone else came out and wrote a book on the human interest stories of Gettysburg. So I kind of shelved the idea. Then I approached this publisher and I said, would you be interested, years later, would you be interested in doing a book on the ghost stories of Gettysburg? And he said, sure, go ahead and write some up. We'll see what it sounds like. And so I collected all the stories together and wrote them up, stories that I had heard for 10 or 12 years from the time I was a park ranger there. And because we would get stories from visitors who were out on the battlefield, from older park rangers. Some of the stories in the first book I'd have to call legends, because I really don't have a documentation of from whom they came. But it's and it took about maybe 10, 12 years to collect all those stories. And I put them together. It took a year to write the book. I did it in a kind of a unique fashion. I wrote the history of the site because I knew it. And then I wrote the ghost stories. And the interesting part is there always seems to be some kind of a connection. You know, a ghost story, if you don't have the history behind the site, it's kind of like, I like to liken it to, you're walking down the street on a dark night and somebody jumps out of the bushes and they go boo, and you're scared for 10 seconds until you realize it's your idiot brother-in-law, making it. So, but if you know the history of, for example, Gettysburg, what happened, it really drives it home. You understand that there could be a connection.
The history and the paranormal, I've preached this for years, go hand in hand. You cannot have the ghosts without the history.
Right.
Now, these books that you developed over the years later became tours, and you started taking people through tours of Gettysburg. How long have you been doing those now?
We're in our 30th season.
Wow.
30. Yeah. I got old fast. I can't believe it. But actually the borough came to me. A fellow from the borough came to me.
Well, and before we do that, we're just about to take our first break. And that's how these things go. We get talking and we got to take those breaks. But we're going to get back to the tours in just a few minutes. Folks, Mark Nesbitt, don't leave us. Got some great stories. We'll be back right after these messages.
Whether you're a skeptic or a believer, join me, Rob McConnell, on the X Zone Radio Show, as together we will investigate the world of the paranormal and the science of parapsychology. Join me and my special guests from around the world each and every night as we investigate UFOs, ghosts, psychics, Bigfoot, conspiracies, and much, much more. Dare to believe and dare to be heard on the X Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell, Monday through Friday at 11 p.m. on your hometown radio, Classic 1220, classic1220.ca.
And we are back with my guest tonight, Mark Nesbitt. Now, Mark, we are about ready to get into your fairly well-known, I would say, famous tours up there in Gettysburg. You were getting ready to tell us how the town came to you, and tell us about that.
Well, Walt Powell was the borough historian at the time, and I had served with him on some uh, boards of directors of historic places and sites and things. And they were having a little bit of a problem in Gettysburg because they had just redone over the years the downtown area around the center square of town, and buildings were refurbished and trees were planted and everything. But they seemed to have trouble getting people up there because everybody centered on the tourist area, which is down on Steinwehr Avenue, closer to the Pickett's Charge area. And so he said, "Do you think you could develop a tour using your books of the downtown area, and maybe it'll help draw some people to the downtown, and we can show them that?" So I said, "Sure, I can give it a try," because I had developed tours for the Park Service before. So I put together a tour, and it's kind of interesting because going into it and as a business was kind of interesting because all of a sudden I had to I spent $3,000 on a brochures. I
Mm.
contracted with a teacher who had the summer off and said, "Is $3,000 too much or not enough to get you to sell tickets?" You know, and she said, I'm in for 3 grand. So already I'm into it for 6,000. I remember the first night that the tours went off, and I was standing there in the center square, and I was doing a head count, and we were charging $6 a tour back in those days, and I counted 10 people.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going, "Oh, Mark, what in the world did you do now?" I gotta come
What
up
have I
with
got
6 grand.
myself into? Yeah.
Yeah, but it gradually, we were lucky because we were the first ones, and everybody was interested in it. All the local TV stations came and did stories on it, and radio stations and everything. So I was very lucky because we had great publicity for it. And over the years now, it's grown, and
Well,
not a whole lot
you
of
start,
business, mom and pop businesses stay open for 30 years. So.
yeah, and you started this before a lot of the ghost investigation, ghost hunting, if you'll excuse the term, was in vogue. So
That is
you got it.
correct.
So, what do you? How do you keep things fresh with these tours?
Well, I'm actually on Ghosts of Gettysburg 9 now. So the stories keep coming in.
Mhm.
And so we can change those stories anytime we want because it's not recorded. We have live guides. And the
Mm.
guides also lend something to it as well because we promise an hour and 15 minutes or an hour and a half or an hour and 45 minutes per tour, depending on what tour you take. And the guides can choose. So if whatever stories they want, I give them more stories than they can use on one tour. So if you take one of our tours and you have, say, Sally for a guide, if you come in next year and get Sandy for the guide, you may get a whole different tour. Some of the stories, some of the classics will be the same classic stories, but you will probably get a different tour depending on the guide because they all have their favorite stories and they'll tell them.
And a different take on things. Yeah, I get that. So let's, as these tours go on, I do tours myself, so I get how this works. As far as the guests, have do your guests often experience things, and what do they? What's the most common experience that your guests have?
Guests do experience things, and it, it, it it's not always visual. In fact, it
Mm,
rarely is, because
mm,
if you look at my books and do a little survey of them, you find out that only about 10% of all the stories in my books are visuals. The most common um, experience is auditory. You'll hear something at Gettysburg before you'll see it, and they report hearing footsteps following the tour, and they'll turn around and nobody. They're the last ones on the street,
Mm.
and they've also heard cheering, large bodies of men cheering. They'll hear cannons firing, the
Mhm.
rattle of musketry. They'll hear that. They have heard that. The other thing that happens, because all the senses are involved when you're having an experience, a paranormal experience, is is olfactory. People will smell things on our
Mhm.
tours. For example, they'll smell. They come back and they say, "I smell rotten eggs on the," and there's no reason for it. And I said, "Well, not a normal reason, but there may be a paranormal reason." Of course, that's sulfur, and sulfur
Mhm.
was one of the main components of black powder, which
Mhm.
was the main propellant in those days for the weapons that they used. Um, they'll smell old-fashioned perfume. They said my grandmother used to wear that perfume, and what they're probably smelling is a remnant of the women in Gettysburg who would go out right after the battle and try and do their shopping, and the wind would change, and the smell of decomposition would roll through the town, and they'd soak their handkerchiefs in this lilac water or rose water, and just put it up to their nose when
Mhm.
this would happen, and because you can't run away from that smell, it's pretty pervasive. So those are some of the things that our people have experienced, and photographs as well. Photographs, I'm always a little leery about because a lot of them are in windows. Windows have reflections, and
Sure do.
so yeah, exactly. And so you have to be
Mhm.
a little careful about some of that stuff. But Sachs Bridge, as you mentioned, is
Yeah.
now it's not on our tour, but it's a very active place, and there aren't any windows out there to get any reflections from.
Yeah, I've got a very significant story on that bridge where a large chain fell as we were sitting inside of it, and I snapped a picture just as it happened, and everybody's looking at it like, "What was that?"
Hmm.
But there was no chain. There
Hmm.
was no chain that fell, so that
Oh, sure.
and a couple of other things that I want to but yeah, Sachs Bridge is
Yeah.
and that's an interesting story because, can you tell us what happened there? That was a significant, event. S
Right. Sachs Bridge was actually used. That is virtually the original bridge. Probably 80% of it
Oh,
is original. Um, and it was used by both Union and Confederates to get to the battlefield, and eventually ended up in the rear of the Confederate line. And so that whole area became a vast hospital for the Confederates. And whenever you have a hospital, you have, of course, amputations. You have a lot of pain, a lot of emotion. Am I going to make it home? You're thinking
mhm,
about your wife or your kids, and then whenever you have a hospital, you also have death, and so there are a lot of burials. There were a lot of burials out there, and we know that when the Confederate Army left, they left in a hurry, and some of the burials were not taken care of. And so, if there are any, there are several places out at Gettysburg that there are probably still some Confederates buried there because there are a bunch missing. Uh,
mm.
Greg Coco, who wrote a book on that, estimated that there were anywhere from 800 to 1,200 Confederates that were unaccounted for, which means they could still be buried out on the battlefield.
Dear Lord, and if memory serves, Gettysburg was the largest loss of American life of any battle, any battle that we've had, because both sides were Americans.
Correct. 51,000 casualties is what we used to say back in the day when I worked for the National Park Service, which is Yankee Stadium holds 52,000
Mm.
fans. So anytime it's on TV, you just look around at that stadium, and that's how many people were in Gettysburg. Just the wounded, and dead after the battle.
What most significant spot? I've got two questions here. The most significant spot for activity on your tours, and then the most significant spot that you personally know of for paranormal activity.
On our tours, there's a lot that goes on. We have a tour that goes to the Carlisle Street and Gettysburg College campus, and there's a lot that goes on that campus. Why? I don't know. I think it's because of all the energy that's up there. We all know what a college campus is like, especially like on a Saturday night after a football game and everything. There's a lot of energy. And my theory is that the ghosts need energy from somewhere because they don't eat. We get our energy from our breakfast and lunch and dinner. They can't do that. So I think they maybe borrow it from us, or from, for example, moving water, like Sachs Bridge, the water that goes underneath that. There's a lot of energy at 1,300 pounds a cubic yard of water. There's a lot of energy there. And so I would say the Gettysburg College campus is probably pretty active. And as far as the battlefield is concerned, people always ask me, where's the most haunted place on the battlefield? And I tell them it changes, but there are two that we know of for sure. One would be Devil's Den, and the other would be right next to it, the Triangular Field. I've got more stories from that area, and they just keep coming in. So,
yeah, and people don't realize there's still Gettysburg College is still a very active, very vibrant university there. So this is a lively town. It isn't just stuck in history. It keeps growing.
Oh yeah, it does. We have, and they're are always trying to do things for the visitors, for the tourists in town. Like we had a huge Christmas week that went on, and obviously the 4th of July is right on the anniversary of the battle. July 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, 1863 was the battle. 4th of July weekend. So there's a lot of activity throughout the year in Gettysburg, not just in the summertime.
One of my favorite stories, I think it was in actually one of the college dorms where somebody took an elevator downstairs and they opened it and there was a battlefield hospital in there. Is that a pretty true story, I guess, right?
Well, yeah, that's when one of my books, in my first book, and then it turns out that I knew the people that happened to, and I researched it. So I did. We take a break.
Okay. Yeah, we got to take a break, but that's okay.
Fine.
We keep people hanging that way. So stay with us, folks. We're going to hear about the battlefield hospital that appeared inside the college building. So stay with us. We'll be back right after these messages.
Are you ready for a tale that will leave you on the edge of your seat? Get ready to dive into the gripping memoir by Bart Sibrel titled Moon Man. Bart Sibrel takes you on a heart-pounding journey, unmasking the truth behind America's famous Apollo missions. Prepare yourself for hair-raising encounters with agents from the U.S. government's top secret agencies. In Moon Man, Sibrel fearlessly reveals his real-life espionage adventures, shining a light on one of the CIA's best-kept secrets. Brace yourself for shocking revelations, including Sibrel's discovery of privately recorded audio exposing an Apollo astronaut's chilling plot, a plot orchestrated by the CIA. That's right. As Sibrel unveils this groundbreaking evidence, it becomes clear that there is much more to the Apollo missions than meets the eye. Could it be that we've been deceived all along? Moon Man is a gripping page-turner that challenges everything you thought you knew. It's a mind-bending journey into the unknown, where the line between truth and fiction becomes blurred. Don't miss this opportunity to uncover the secrets hidden for decades. Let your curiosity guide you as you join Bart Sibrel on his quest to find the truth. Moon Man, available now at Sibrel.com. That's Sibrel.com. Prepare to have your beliefs shaken to the very core.
And we are back with my guest tonight, Mark Nesbitt. We were just about ready to get into one of the more interesting stories that I'm aware of out of Gettysburg. And it was a building where some folks took an elevator. They went to I'm going to say the basement, as memory serves, and the door is open, and they're in the middle of a Civil War operating room. So why don't you take that one from the top? You say you know the folks that it experienced that.
The place was Pennsylvania Hall, and it's called Old Dorm, and it was used as a dormitory. At Gettysburg College, it was called Pennsylvania College at the time of the battle. That was one of the three main buildings on the college campus. Being one of the largest buildings, it was confiscated by the surgeons as soon as they got into town, because they knew they were going to need a great big area to operate on people. And sure enough, it filled up with wounded soldiers. Mostly the lower floors were the operating rooms, upper floors were for recovery. And so it was a pretty horrific sight in that area. So fast forward now to the 1980s, it's now, and was then, the administration building for Gettysburg College. And a couple of my friends were working late at night at the upstairs on the fourth floor, getting some things taken care of. And they ended up staying too late, and they said, okay, let's go. It's time to leave. So 11 o'clock, they got on the elevator descended. And just as you said, the doors went past the first floor where the exits are, went into the basement, doors opened to a horrible sight of a hospital scene with wounded soldiers all around the corners, a surgeon in the middle with a bloody saw, ready to operate on some poor guy on this makeshift operating table. Well, they couldn't get the elevator to work, of course. It wouldn't close. The doors wouldn't close. Finally, they closed, and they ended up going back up to the first floor. Went immediately over to security to report this. Now, the security guard became a friend of mine later on, and I interviewed him about it. And he said, yes, they were scared to death. And we went right over there. It was a minute between the time they got to me and we got over there. And they went down in the elevator again. The doors open, and it was pristine. It was all whitewashed because that's the way it was before. They had their computer parts and the paper and stuff and everything down there. So there's no explanation for that. But the strange part is, a number of years later, stranger than that. Well, it's kind of interesting because I always look for this. I have a chapter called Deja Vu in my last book. What I realized is, after 20 some years, things are happening again in the same site, same venue, whole different set of people, same events. Okay, so I'm starting to collect those. And this was one of them. I was doing an autographing at Gettysburg College, and a couple came up to me and they said, we know that woman that happened to. I said, and I named the two. They said, no. I said, what's going on? Do you have another name? And they gave me another name. The circumstances were a little different. She was actually working for a auditing firm out of Lancaster. They came to audit Gettysburg College. She was up on the top floor. They asked her, would you please go down to the cars and get some paperwork? She got in the elevator and went down, doors open, and she had exactly the same experience. I called her up. I interviewed her, and she said, and she just told me the story, the same description that I got from the security officer. So that's three individuals that had exactly the same experience in that building, and I'm tracking down a fourth.
Interesting.
Yeah. But the reason I'm interested in this deja vu thing, in other words, things that happen again, is because you're a paranormal researcher. You can't. It's very difficult to do a scientific study of these, because one of the things the scientific method requires is for you to experiment and recreate the
Great.
experiment
Yeah.
so that it can be done over and over and over again. Virtually impossible. But what we can do is we can, with good recording techniques, we can get these events that are happening in the same place over and over again and record them.
Mhm.
And so now all of a sudden you do have an experiment that's being done over and over and over again, but we're just recording it, and it's happened all over, all the time in the battlefield if you study them long enough.
Well, this is good. This kind of causes me to gut off my track of it because I had some other questions to go along with this, and we may get to that in our fourth session. But this makes me want to kind of head down a different road. And it's a rhetorical question, but Mark, do you believe that ghosts exist? I'm assuming at this point, yes.
Well,
Would that be correct?
I really didn't. I'm. Let me put it this way: I'm a skeptic. Okay, I'm
Okay.
trying to remain a skeptic as much as I possibly can. Being objective. Writers are supposed to be objective. That's what I try and do.
As are cops.
However, I've run into 3 or 4 different scientific theories and scientific proofs that it's possible for ghosts to exist.
Right.
Um, and some of it goes directly to quantum. There are things in
Quantum
quantum
physics.
theory, physics. But one of the things, for example, one of the things is a researcher in the old in Polish research in the old Soviet Union, back when they could do tests like this, did tests on dying people, and he realized that under death, when you're dying, the body at the point of death gives off photons, a huge burst of light energy that's 1,000 times greater than what we give off when we're alive. He called it a death shout that the body gives off, and of course, that kind of goes along with what's known as the stone recorder theory, which says that
Mm,
whatever if there's some sort of quartz around, then there's a very good possibility that electromagnetism can be captured in that. You see where I'm going with this?
Oh, I
You got
do. I do.
thousands of men dying in one area. You have Gettysburg full of granite, which is
Mhm.
full of quartz, and you may have the reason why we get residual hauntings. In other words, like a recorder that plays over and over and
Right.
over again. The question is, what is it that sets it off? What releases? What button do you push? To, like, on your
Mm.
computer, to get that information back that's been recorded in the courts around Gettysburg. So those are just a couple things that have convinced me that there's something going on.
That we
And
cannot
Gettysburg
explain
is,
what.
yeah,
Yeah, and that you kinda hit the second part of my question. What do you think it is? Your opinion, correct me if I have this wrong, is that it's more of an energy that has been captured and is somehow released at certain times. But if that's the case, what about folks that have actually interacted supposedly with folks they thought were reenactors
right. Well,
that
first of
actually
all,
that have.
yeah. Well, first of all, everything has to be energy. Okay. Matter is energy, it's frozen energy, according to Einstein. So, in order for it to be in this world, it has to be some kind of energy. The interactive hauntings, okay, where I guess they're the scariest because you actually, they're intelligent hauntings. They actually acknowledge you, the living.
Mhm,
The dead
mhm.
acknowledge the living. That can either talk to you or look at you or
Intelligent haunts, we call it,
yeah,
or
intelligent haunting.
sentient, yeah.
Right. Um, what causes that? That might be something a little more on the quantum side. I think that there are also um, parallel universes, a possibility. There's a great physicist at Harvard, Lisa Randall is her name, and she has this theory about parallel worlds, and they're actually like parallel things that are living right next to each other, that are existing right next to each other. She calls them brains, branes, brains, like membranes. I'm thinking that maybe they're kind of like rubber and malleable, and every once in a while they cross. And when they cross, that's when you can see into the other one. Okay. Sometimes we'll call it a warp, where it seems like the time rips open and then it closes. Doesn't last very long. But that would be a physics explanation for why we have intelligent hauntings.
But that would cause, for example, and I don't remember the details of this story, was where a guest at the park saw an individual in a union uniform, I believe, and they actually talked and they interacted, and then she turned around and he was gone. Through that theory, I come to the conclusion that at least one side knows they're passing back and forth, and therefore they're easily able to communicate and not be shocked when they see somebody in another dimension. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Well, once again, that begs the question, just like we can occasionally see them, can they see us?
Oh, yeah.
And apparently they can, because they do react to us, to our presence there. And speaking of that story, and speaking deja vu, I did get a second witness to that fellow. Gave the same description, never read my story, gave the same description to him, and he looked at her, and we think he was from the 1st Texas, okay, because Texas was the unit that took over Devil's Den, because he stood there. When she looked up, she said, this ragged guy was standing in front of me. He looked at me, and he pointed at my sweatshirt, and he said, 1st Texas. And I looked down, and she had worn that burnt orange Texas football shirt. And she looked down and she looked up, and he was gone. But he spoke to her. And so that was a remarkable. That's 2 from that soldier, if it's the same soldier, and the description was the same.
And I kind of almost feel the hair standing up now. And the big thing, Mark, is I'm a cop. You were a cop. We look for hard evidence. Yet these things keep happening, and there's got to be a reason for it. And that's, I know, one of the reasons why you look at this, and certainly one of the reasons why I investigate this. There's something happening. We just don't know what it is. But we got to take our last break here. So when we get back, I want to talk to you a little bit about your favorite spots, the spots that you find the most active, and your most harrowing experience. So folks, stay with us. We'll be back right after these messages with more with Mark Nesbitt.
Are you ready to dive into the mysteries of the unknown? Tune into the electrifying X-Zone radio TV show hosted by the one and only Rob McConnell.
I'm Rob McConnell, and get ready for a mind-bending journey through the unexplained phenomenon that surrounds us all. From UFO encounters to cryptids, ghosts, and everything in between, we've got it covered here in the X-Zone.
Rob McConnell, the seasoned investigator and renowned radio personality, brings you the most compelling interviews with top experts, authors, and experiencers from around the world. Each episode is an unforgettable exploration into the depths of the extraordinary.
That's right, X-Zone Nation. Join me every week as we open the door to the supernatural and explore the strange and amazing stories that will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew.
And it's not just radio anymore. With our groundbreaking TV show, you can now witness the sessions unfold right before your eyes. From chilling reenactments to captivating visuals, prepare yourself for a multimedia experience like never before.
With a legacy spanning over 2 decades, the X Zone Radio and TV show with yours truly, Rob McConnell, is your ultimate source for mind-blowing entertainment and thought-provoking discussions. Join our growing community of truth seekers as we continue to unlock the world's mysteries.
So, why wait? Step into the X Zone and embark on a journey that will challenge your beliefs, ignite your curiosity, and keep you on the edge of your seat.
Remember, X Zone Nation, the truth is out there, and it's waiting for you right here on the X Zone Radio and TV show with yours truly, Rob McConnell. Don't miss a minute of the action.
Tune in now on your favorite radio station or visit xzoneradiotv.com to join the adventure. The X Zone Radio TV show with Rob McConnell, where reality meets the unknown.
The X Zone Radio TV show, unraveling the secrets of the universe, one episode at a time. For more information, visit www.xzoneradiotv.com.
And we are back with Mark Nesbitt. Fascinating stories, and as always, we never seem to have enough time to cover this. But I do want to mention, folks, that if you want to learn more about my organization, the Florida Bureau of Paranormal Investigation and Indian River Hauntings, you can check out our websites at paranormalfbi.com or indianriverhauntings.com. If you want to see some of the work that we've done, investigations and the like, you can check us out on YouTube that's the symbol for Indian River Hauntings 2341. Now, if you have some questions, things you'd like to bring up, thoughts on the show, email me at ghostguy@paranormalstakeout.org. You can see all my past shows on paranormalstakeout.org. Check us out. Also, I'd be remiss if I didn't say there's other great programming right here on the X Zone broadcast network. So check out xzbn.net to see all the great shows also on the net. And Mark, what's in the future for you? Any books, new books coming out?
Yeah, Larry, I'm getting ready to get Ghosts of Gettysburg 9 out probably this spring. I'm just finishing that up. And we have some special events that we do on special weekends with the Ghosts of Gettysburg tours. We have what we call paranormal weekends. We're getting together with a Balladary Inn, which is a wonderful bed and breakfast in Gettysburg. And we're going to do probably 3 or 4 paranormal investigations at sites that I mentioned in my book. Hidden haunted hotspots of Gettysburg, places that I've never actually done any other books on, some places that not too many people get to go to. One of them is at the Balladary Inn. Apparently there are some Confederate soldiers that were buried under what is now the tennis courts out there. And we're going to, using various methods, try and find out if they really are, and try.
I think I was playing a little bit with your audio here, my friend. We got you cut off a little bit there. If you could repeat that, the ghost kind of got into our system there.
It happens. It happens a lot on these. Yeah, we're doing a paranormal weekend at the Balladary Inn, and we're going to be doing it, trying to find some sites that are in my book, Hidden Haunted Hotspots of Gettysburg. That's the most recent book that I've come out with. So it should be interesting.
Yeah, well, I look forward to. I may have to take the team up there for a visit to Gettysburg. It's been a couple years since I've been up there. It's I got to ask you this question before I start asking about favorite spots and whatnot. Little Round Top, where the hook was, where the 20th Maine, Joshua Chamberlain. I know that history is kind of maybe exaggerated what happened there a tad bit, but still a place of honor, and probably saved the Union flank the way with what Joshua Chamberlain did. Anything there? Have you ever experienced anything on Little Round Top? I'm just out of curiosity.
Other than when I was on patrol at night, the quote Willies, we all know what those are, right? When you're driving along and all of a sudden you want to stop and get out of the car and stretch your legs, and all of a sudden you say, No,
We got
maybe
time to
next
go.
time around the
Yeah, yeah.
battlefield. Yeah, I'll go the next time. And but no, that is a very in terms of activity. I don't recall a whole lot, although there should be more because there are a lot of people there to witness it. I mean, it's one of the most popular
Mhm,
places on the battlefield. It has been
mhm.
closed down for the last year and a half because
Really?
they're redoing. It, as they like to say in the Park Service, it was just loved too much by the people. They just went
Right.
walked all over it, and
Mhm.
so they had to redo some pathways and stuff. But it should be open, I guess, sometime this summer.
Okay, great. Now you've mentioned, of course, Devil's Den and the Triangular Field as spots where many, many things have occurred. But what is Mark Nesbitt's favorite spot? If you wanted to experience whatever that other side is, whether it's residual, whether it's intelligent, dimensions crossing, where would you go?
Well, actually, you named one of them as a triangular field. I
Mm,
personally have had more experiences in the triangular field. Everything from getting my very first EVP out there. I wrote a book called 35 Days to Gettysburg. It was about a Confederate soldier and a Union soldier. I used their diaries to set them up day by day through the entire Gettysburg campaign. But I also got the Confederate soldiers' roster of dead from his company in the 15th Georgia, and went out there and was asking questions using their names and got
mm,
somewhat military answers on my recorder when I played it back. Also, cameras going on the blink constantly out there. I had
heard that.
three of my cameras go, and when people were interviewing me from radio stations, TV stations out there, two TV station, $15,000 cameras went on the blink out there in the triangular field. So that's a very, very active place, at least for me personally. Um, and I'm starting to find some others out there as well. East Cavalry Battlefield, 3 miles outside of town, is kind of active out there, and it's quiet. Not a lot of people know about it. Of course, they do now, but not a lot of
Mhm.
people know about it. And if you can get out there, you can find spots. One of the largest cavalry battles on the North American continent was fought out there.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Ah, the most harrowing experience you have ever had out there, or I should say significant. I mean, I can't see you getting, run dude or whatever. Okay, I can't see that.
Yeah.
Uh, but what's the most significant experience you've had on the field?
Okay, this is one that I probably should have run away from, but I didn't because I was
Okay.
fascinated. Um, I was called to the Daniel Lady Farm by the caretaker out there one day, and he said, "Mark, if you want to see a paranormal experience occurring before your very eyes, come out here to the Lady Farm." Okay, so I went out to the Lady Farm. Daniel Lady Farm was a hospital at the time, like every place was in Gettysburg,
Mhm.
and he said, I'm not going to say anything, just going to take you to the room. Yesterday, this was all cleaned up because we had people coming through here and we wanted to look nice. This was the room that was the um, operating room out there. He opened the door and I walked in and I had a video camera going and he didn't say anything, but I looked down on the floor and there on the floor were streams of a rust colored liquid flowing, it seemed, towards the depression where the fireplace was. Three or
Mhm.
four of these things. And I said, "Did you have a pipe break?" He goes, "Nope. This just happened. It was clean yesterday. It's like this today." I said, "All right." I said, "Do you have a tissue?" He said, "Yeah." So I'm taking pictures and I dip the tissue in this liquid, not knowing what it is. And I was there for half an hour videotaping, photographing, put a yardstick down there so we could see how long they were, and they're at least 5 feet long, three or four of them. I said, I don't know what to do. He says, I don't know what to do either. I got to go out in the fields. I got work to do, but somehow I got to figure out what I'm going to do with this. I said, okay. So I went back to where we stay in Gettysburg. 2 hours later, I got a phone call, same caretaker. I said, "What's up?" He says, "It's gone." I said, "What do you mean it's gone?" He said, "It disappeared." So jumped back in the van, went out there. I had my videotape going and time stamped and everything. And I went in and I looked, and sure enough, it had disappeared. And you have a video of him getting down, squatting down, and rubbing his hand over the spot. He said, "It was right here, right?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "What the?" And he looked at his fingertips. They're covered with dust. I'm like, what in the heck just happened here? And Carol, my wife, was with me, and she said, "I wonder if the samples are still intact." She ran out to the van and she found them. She said, "They're still here." Now, the Gettysburg Battlefield Preservation Association is pretty well connected. So we sent those samples out to a forensics lab in Pennsylvania. 3 weeks later, the results came back. The liquid was blood. The species identified as blood. The species was human. All that blood was human blood, and it disappeared. Now, the strange part about it is that Mrs. Lady's operating room, her living room there, has blood stains in it, in the wood from the battle. There's one handprint there where a poor fellow was pushing himself up. And the blood was there for 106, still there, 167, 60 years. But that disappeared completely. So in other words, there's no way he could have cleaned it up.
And you videoed it when he first called you over there. You documented it on video. You
documented it being there,
and then you documented it's gone.
Yeah,
that's significant. Now, where is this evidence today? Is it being preserved? Is it being kept anywhere? Because I find that incredibly significant.
Well, the evidence, the video evidence I have, and also photographs. Some of them are in my book. I think it's the last, second from last book, and I didn't give them all the evidence that I collected there. There were 2 tissues.
Okay.
And they got one, and I kept the other. So I have that in my files. So.
Wow. Now that is a cop and evidence collection, preservation. Wow. That's huge, because how can that occur? Was there any scientific explanation to how?
If it would have been rusty water, okay, we might have come up. Okay, maybe somewhere, a pipe broke or something. No, it was blood. It was human. So, and I have no explanation. I don't know what happened there. A time warp? Did I go through a time warp there where, it should have been dry, and then no, because it disappeared, and I have everything time stamped. So I don't know, Larry. It's
well, folks, I'm here to tell you, as a cop, and I've been looking for evidence all the years I've been doing paranormal investigations. This is significant. So, has anybody done anything else with it? I mean, is there any?
Well, I recorded. I put it in my book, and that's about the best account that there is of it.
Well,
so.
Well, and what really stinks is we're out of time, my friend. We're gonna have to do this again. I'll be calling on you. Anyway, I appreciate you being with us, Mark. Folks, stay tuned. We're going to be getting him back on the show because we've got so much more to talk about in the future. Thank you so much for your time, Mark. Thank you for being here. Folks, thank you for joining us. I do want to mention March 25th, my book, Haunted Indian River County, is going to be released. You can now pre-order it on Amazon. So if you are interested in hearing about the ghosts here in Indian River County, go to Amazon, look up Haunted Indian River County, and you can pre-order now. So I'd appreciate that. But I appreciate everybody being here. Thank you for listening. Great show. Take care. Love the family. Hug those kids. And we'll see you on the other side. Have a good night, folks.